the New Forest. Lovable, large and very, very slobbery. A St Bernard puppy set to wreak havoc in our film Beethoven at 3:10 this afternoon on BBC One. And magic abounds tomorrow in a special film version of The Queen's Nose at 10:55.
Oh, to see them, to touch them.
The floods may be going down.
100 years old
The
and
train is travelling at high speed when it was
6 baby pandas have
The
been
Erika
born.
sank off the...
We don't have anything to prove.
Rewind 2000, News Round Review of the Year, today at 4:35 on CBBC One.
This is BBC One in the South East. Now, the news.
Heavy snow across much of Britain has hit road, rail and air travel. There have been scores of accidents and many roads are closed. 5 people have been injured by an explosion on a bus in Israel.
And in the southeast, a cold start to the day as a white Christmas comes a couple of days late. And more bobbies on the beat as the Metropolitan Police kick off 2001 with a new generation of trainees.
Good afternoon. Heavy falls of snow across much of the country have brought chaos to road, rail and air services. In Northern Ireland, many roads were completely blocked after the heaviest snow for 18 years. Many airports have been closed and thousands of passengers are stranded. Forecasters say temperatures will struggle to rise above freezing in many places today, and people are being advised not to travel.
The first widespread snow of winter has carpeted the country in white and brought movement in many areas to a standstill. The only way to reach some emergencies was by helicopter. One rescued a couple and their baby on Dartmoor after 5 hours stuck in their car. For Northern Ireland, last night's was the heaviest snowfall in 18 years. Compared to more rural areas, Belfast city centre got off relatively lightly. First light this morning in Glasgow and a struggle to get much beyond the front door. Some parts of the city were under 8 inches of snow. This has been Scotland's coldest winter for 5 years.
We can only apologise to passengers for the inconvenience caused.
In Scotland, as elsewhere, rail services were disrupted this morning. The icy tracks all but invisible in some places. Nationwide, the blanket of snow can only hamper Railtrack's frantic engineering programme. Despite the efforts of the gritters, like this one in Wales, there have been scores of accidents on the roads. Police said many routes were like ice rinks. Because the snow came late in the night, especially in the south, it settled on what was already sheet ice. The AA says breakdowns have been running at 1,300 per hour. Runways buried in snow had to close for a time here at East Midlands, as well as at most other major airports. After de-icing, the airports have been gradually reopening, but in some cases passengers were stranded overnight. For those who don't have to travel today, like these families in Birmingham, the snow presents an opportunity to slide around just for pleasure. And of course, it's all made certain residents of Dudley Zoo feel more at home than ever. George Eakin, BBC News.
Well, let's go up to Glasgow now to our correspondent Carol Jones. Carol, we can see the depth of the snow there behind you at Glasgow International Airport. What's the picture across Scotland as a whole?
Well, the band of snow which swept in from the west has really hit the west of Scotland. Glasgow in particular has been very badly hit, as George Eakin said, around 8 to 10 inches of snow. In the outlying areas, in Renfrewshire, in Ayrshire, that's up to about 15 inches of snow. And the result has been that, particularly at the airport here, the airport shut at 5:30 this morning. No flights coming in or coming out. And the efforts to clear the runways have been hampered by the fresh snowfalls. It's been snowing continuously for 12 hours. Every time they use the blowers to clear the runway, a fresh snow would basically close the runway again. So it's a lot of disruption. But they're hoping with this respite, in the last hour it's stopped snowing, but they're hoping with this respite to get the airport reopened again within the next hour or so. And that will be good news to the 2,000 passengers who've been stuck here overnight.
So presumably a lot of roads in the Highlands across Scotland, a lot of roads closed.
The roads haven't been too bad, and that's largely due to a major gritting operation In Glasgow alone, around 1,800 staff have been working to make sure the roads are clear. This morning it was pretty bad. People were actually deciding to go to work on foot. But as the day's gone on and more traffic have used the roads are actually not too bad. Of course, the minor roads and the B roads and the outlying areas are still blocked with the heavy snowfalls. But the large gritting operation has certainly helped move things along, and it's not looking too bad. As George Eakins said, railways disrupted, trains delayed and cancelled, and passengers advised to check with rail operators before they move off. And the message to all motorists is only travel really if you have to.
Carol Jones, thank you very much indeed. In the last few minutes, Coast Guards in Scotland say they've found 2 fishermen who've been missing since yesterday afternoon, alive and well. One was found at sea off the Isle of Skye, clinging to his boat. The other had made it ashore and was discovered by searchers. A bomb has exploded on a bus in Tel Aviv this morning, injuring at least 5 people. It went off as the bus was travelling on one of the city's main streets. Police sealed off the road after reports of a second bomb on the bus. 2 of the injured are believed to have serious burns. The rest have only minor injuries. There's been no immediate claim of responsibility, although the militant Islamic group Hamas said the bombing was a response to Israeli aggressions. Let's get the latest now from our World Affairs editor, John Simpson, who is in Jerusalem. John, I suppose no coincidence that this attack has happened as efforts are made to revive the peace process.
I think that's a fair assumption, yes. Alas, that's not the first time that this sort of thing has happened. In fact, we're just getting now figures that say 13 people were injured and 1 seriously, and they do regard it as a terrorist attack. So, yeah, I assume that there is some kind of link, but it's always difficult to know who's responsible for these kind of terrorist attacks anyway.
Let's turn to the efforts to revive the peace process. Mr. Arafat in Cairo today, seeing President Mubarak of Egypt to consider these latest American proposals. Do you sense that this is going to get anywhere?
It's stalled at the moment. I mean, it's got no movement behind it whatsoever because the Palestinians simply don't feel that there's enough in it for them, and they feel that the Americans haven't been dealing sufficiently even-handedly as between them and the Israelis. So the question is really whether President Mubarak, who has been quite critical privately, it seems, of the American proposals, is actually encouraging Mr. Arafat to carry on talking, or whether he's saying to him, wait till there's another president coming in. But it's not all over yet. It looks as though Mr. Barak, the Israeli Prime Minister, is going to make a phone call this afternoon at some stage to President Mubarak to see if it's still worth having some kind of get-together with him and Mr. Arafat about the whole thing.
John Simpson in Jerusalem, thank you very much indeed. The mobile phone company Vodafone is facing possible legal action in the United States from victims of brain tumours. A lawyer who recently won billions of dollars in damages against tobacco manufacturers has started a legal action against the mobile phone industry.
The growing popularity of mobile phones means that now around 2/3 of people in Britain own one. Fears that using these mobiles could lead to brain tumours have surfaced in the past. But earlier this year, the government's Stewart inquiry said there was no firm evidence that mobile phones damage health. Today, though, a report says that the world's biggest mobile phone company, Vodafone, along with other network operators, handset manufacturers and fixed-line operators, could face up to 10 compensation claims in the US. British-owned Vodafone has a 45% stake in America's biggest mobile phone company, Verizon. It says if compensation claims were brought in the States and succeeded, and that prompted claims elsewhere in the world, it would defend them vigorously.
I have to stress that there have been no legal actions anywhere in the world that have successfully shown that the health of the user has been damaged, and all cases will be vigorously defended.
One legal case was brought earlier this year by a mobile phone user in America. That's against handset manufacturer Motorola. But Vodafone stresses it's not involved in any compensation claims at the moment. Karen Hoggan, BBC News.
And that's it for the moment. There are, of course, news bulletins every hour over on BBC News 24. I'll be back here on BBC One with a further bulletin of news at 5:05.
Good afternoon to you. The children might be enjoying the winter wonderland, but certainly not travellers. Some dangerous driving conditions because of the snow and the ice, and travel has been disrupted because of that. A lot of lying snow across a good part of the United Kingdom, as much as 33 centimetres in the southern uplands, but even further south we've had 2 or 3 inches. That's been enough to close some roads and cause some very nasty icy patches indeed. Now, we still have some snow around this afternoon, not heavy, but certainly some patchy snow coming and going along this line. You can see it on the radar here, gradually creeping away to the northeast, but also some of those wintry showers to continue. So throughout the afternoon there is a risk of the odd snow shower coming and going, but also some sunshine to enjoy, but it won't be very warm. Our top temperature maybe 2 degrees above freezing, more typically around about freezing for a good part of the United Kingdom. Then overnight tonight, there is a risk of further wintry showers coming and going through the night, but also added problems with clearing skies, of those temperatures falling away quite dramatically again. And we're looking at figures as low as -10, -12 in the northern half of the United Kingdom, -2 to -7 in the south. Icy patches to look out for, and also problems with some mist and fog first thing in the morning. And that's the setup for tomorrow. We still have this low reasonably close by with quite a strong northerly wind. That's going to feed in quite a few snow showers down the eastern side of the United Kingdom. The showers in the west becoming much more isolated. A cold day everywhere and a cold night to come. And over the next few nights, that frost remaining widespread with temperatures as low as -15 through Saturday night into the early hours of Sunday. I'll have more later. Bye for now.
The second part of BBC Two's Christmas Treat. A special broadcast of Tchaikovsky's magical Christmas tale, The Nutcracker, in a sumptuous performance by the Royal Ballet. Saturday at 3:25 on BBC Two.
Into the belly of the beast.
One man against the system.
What's wrong? What's the emergency?
Well, the emergency is this train has failed to make the mandatory scheduled stop.
One family against the odds.
We're starting up a bus company.
No, in my house, you know.
Just stick out your hand, I'll pick you up.
A drama special.
People have been left stranded.
What's that got to do with you?
For evil to triumph, it requires only that good people do nothing.
Doing battle with giants.
What is going on here? We can't handle a couple of lunatics in a play school bus.
They're going after our routes, Sandy.
Colin Firth is Donovan Quick.
Let the people say, we
shall not rise!
Tonight at 9 on BBC One.
It's one bus, one family.
Now on BBC One, the news in London and the South East with Lou James.
Good afternoon. Large areas of the southeast are snowbound today after heavy falls overnight. There have been 45 accidents in Essex, among them a 10-vehicle pile-up on the M25. Well, Kent is also heavily affected. Well, our reporter Amanda Harper joins us now from Hampstead Heath. Amanda, what on earth is... Well, I can see what it's like there now.
Well, it may look like a winter wonderland, but the white stuff has been causing problems across the southeast today. In London itself, there have been problems on the buses and the trains. The tube, for example, has problems overland with points and signal failures. Same with the trains. Silverlink, Thames Link and Connex have all had problems. Out to London, there have been problems with the buses, a sporadic service because vehicles have been able to get up the hills because of sheet ice. Elsewhere, there have been problems on the motorways. The M25, there are speed restrictions. The M20, there's a closure at Leeds Castle because of a lorry has gone across the central reservations, hit the central reservation. On the M40, there have also been problems between junctions 4 and 5. The northbound is still closed due to an earlier accident, and 5 and 6 heavy goods vehicles are having problems getting up the hill. But just a quarter of a mile away from here, some of the side roads have been like sheet ice, and as you can see from these pictures in Hampstead, people have been having swerving across, trying to get their vehicles up the hills.
Apart from the vehicles on the roads, it looks like for the people behind you, it's a rather unusual sight for Hampstead Heath, isn't it?
Well, it is. As you can probably see behind me, the children are tobogganing here, but we went to Parliament Hill Fields today and we had a look around and everybody was there, all ages. And for some children, this is the first time they will have seen snow, so it's been quite good fun for them. But for anybody who decides to go tobogganing today, may I advise that you wear a thick pair of boots and a warm hat because it's very cold, Lou.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Well, now let's get the latest on the situation on those roads from Jules Wilson, who's in front of those Scotland Yard cameras.
Thanks, Lou. We've still got some problems for the M40 with an accident. That's been closed off northbound junctions 4 to 5. Exit slip also closed at junction 3 to help ease the jams off. But the queues are stretching back to junction 2. And coming in from Kent, the M20 closed westbound with a jackknife lorry that stretched out across all 3 lanes. Now, for the M1, as you can see, the latest situation's greatly improved since this morning. That was suffering with ice and snow on the carriageway. Since been gritted, but there's still a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, keeping things slow. And another problem area that's now on the move is the A40 Western Avenue. This view shows a clear run-up now to the Target roundabout. So if you're heading out today, please do keep your speeds down. Watch out for the ice and the packed snow, and that might cause problems for the motorways, also roads that haven't been gritted. Back to Lou.
Thanks very much, Jules. Police have been giving more details about half a woman's body pulled from the Thames. The body was found in the river at Battersea on December the 17th. She was white, aged in her 20s, with a distinctive small front left tooth and a tattoo with the word Zoe on her left arm, and was wearing a beige lycra top. She'd been in the river up to 3 weeks before being pulled from it at Battersea. Pardon me. Well, for the first time in several months, the Met Police has managed to recruit a full complement of police trainees, ready to start training in the new year. The Met has been struggling to attract enough officers into the force because of its poor image and the high cost of living in London. Well, the 200 new recruits, one in a series of intakes planned for 2001, will begin at Hendon Police Training in the new year. That's it from us. We're back at 5:25. Bye-bye.
Going to a slaughter.
Dublin, 1916. British rule is in question.
We hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state.
It's the beginning of a journey.
There is right and there is wrong, and decent people know the difference between the two.
You're a hypocrite.
A fight for independence.
What makes you think an Irish boss is going to be any better than an English one?
You talk like you don't care about independence.
And the ultimate prize of love.
You think you're so handsome, don't you?
Powerful new drama.
If our deed has not been sufficient to win our freedom, then our children will win it by a better deed.
Rebel Heart, Sunday 7th of January on BBC One.
The scandalous side of Victorian women.
She could have a pick of what men she liked. It was like sitting next to a snake at the dinner table.
I have no rights, only wrongs.
Of Gothic buildings.
So far as architecture is concerned, reason went to sleep throughout Victoria's reign.
Quite an unusual structure, really.
The Victorians didn't borrow from the past. They grave robbed.
And the afterlife.
But the body snatchers had their hideout right here.
Victorian Week.
Here we go.
The surprising side of Victorian life, death, morals and monuments.
It's time.
Starts New Year's Day on BBC Two.
Now on BBC One, the chance to share in some of the highlights from this year's Paralympics in Sydney.
BBC Two's Kirk Douglas season continues. He talks about his career in 15 minutes and then stars in the Western Lonely Are the Brave at 10 to 3.
2 comets were discovered that are on a collision course with Earth. Comets the size of New York City.
We all hope for the best.
The Messiah. This is the crew that will stop the comet. If it can't be stopped, all life on Earth will perish.
Sometimes we have to prepare for the worst.
Good luck to us all.
Morgan Freeman stars in the network premiere of Deep Impact, Tuesday at 8:05 on BBC One.
If you love radio and TV, you'll want to experience your day in the life of the BBC.
Imagine being able to interact with the environment.
It's quite simple. Look.
Just the usual. Should I wait or do you want me to count 2?
How extraordinary. So a great big smile at the beginning, and then you do the weather forecast.
I see. Oh, yeah.
Never seen such an exhibition in all my life.
The BBC Experience. Live daily at Broadcasting House in London.
BBC One with a film double. Beethoven the Dog's on the prowl at 3:10 after the team that live life on the edge. The Big Dog with the Funny Name, Beethoven, next on BBC One. And then watch out for S Club 7 and Craig David in the News Round Review of the Year at 4:35.
"150 animals, 150 reasons to watch, and one reason not to." Ugh.
Not bad.
A new series of The Really Wild Show starts Tuesday at 4:35, only on CBBC One.
Winter Warmers this Saturday night on BBC One. And after the lottery draws live in the National Lottery Stars at 8, it's time to celebrate in Casualty. Lenny Henry's back.
There is a man. He was a woman.
With some new comic creations at 9.
There is a bull. He was a cow.
Then Alistair McGowan makes a big impression at 9:30.
We're here to look back with a great deal of smugness.
Keep away the winter chill this Saturday night on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, they wouldn't have had this trouble with a hamster. And there's more. Beethoven's Second is tomorrow on BBC One at 3:15. Next today, the News Round Review of the Year, and on BBC Two in a couple of minutes, a special Robot Wars.
Roll over Beethoven, tell Tchaikovsky the news. Well, if you're feeling like it, go get your lover and reel and rock it. Or roll it over and move on up. Just a drop further than reel and rock with one another. Roll over Beethoven, dig these rhythm and blues.
The second part of BBC Two's Christmas Treat. A special broadcast of Tchaikovsky's magical Christmas tale, The Nutcracker, in a sumptuous performance by the Royal Ballet. Saturday at 3:25 on BBC Two.
Good hunters know their prey.
We're going off to Chilwood Castle.
Good hunters approach silently.
You haven't heard any more about the ghost hunter, have you?
And pounce when least expected.
The ghost hunter's dead, right?
Gotcha! It's bad news for Tess, Reddy and William, as the good hunter is the ghost hunter.
It's me!
Hunt out the all-new episodes of the Ghost Hunter. Tuesday at 5 on CBBC One.
As it was, now on BBC One, 2000 in 30.
Fight for the best deals. Fight for the best price. Fight for your rights. Right. Short Change will hear what you have to say and sort you out. Don't get ripped off, get even with Short Change. Next Thursday, 4:35 on CBBC One. Light up your New Year's Eve with BBC One.
I have a surprise for you.
With David Copperfield at 6:45.
Would you care to join me?
The BBC star-studded two-part production, followed by EastEnders at 8.
This is your night.
David Copperfield concludes at 8:30. At 10:35, join the castaways live on their final night on Taronsay.
I never expected to leave as part of a couple.
Then at 10:45, Angus Deaton says goodbye 2000.
A look back at the news, events and incidents that shaped the last 12 months.
And from 11:45, join Dale Winton and a host of celebrities for the National Lottery New Year Stars with the Big Draw 2001. Kickstart the new year with BBC One.
This is BBC One in the South East. Now, the news.
Much of Britain is snowbound. Travel services have been badly disrupted. Some places have had the heaviest snowfalls for nearly 20 years. 2 bomb attacks in Israel as the latest peace efforts stall. Dropping in at the Palace, a paraglider lands in the forecourt.
And the southeast hasn't seen the worst of the weather yet. It could be -4 or below tonight. And too tough for teachers, why new recruits are leaving the classroom in droves.
Good evening. Heavy falls of snow across much of the country have brought chaos to road, rail and air services. Many airports were shut for most of the day and thousands of passengers are still suffering long delays. Rail services have been disrupted and road conditions are described as treacherous in many parts of the country. The worst hit areas are Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and Western England, and weather forecasters say the cold spell will last for some days to come.
The first widespread snow of winter carpeted the country in white and brought movement in many areas to a standstill. This was the M40 in Buckinghamshire. Stranded lorries, unable to climb the hills near Wickham, caused miles of tailbacks. Some emergencies were only reachable by helicopter. One rescued a couple and their baby on Dartmoor after 5 hours stuck in their car. First light this morning in Glasgow and a struggle to get much beyond the front door. Some parts of the city were under 8 inches of snow. This has been Scotland's coldest winter for 5 years.
We can only apologise to passengers for the inconvenience caused by the disruption to services this morning.
Many trains in Scotland, as elsewhere, were delayed or cancelled this morning. The icy tracks all but invisible in some places. Nationwide, the blanket of snow makes Railtrack's massive programme of holiday period engineering work look even more ambitious. Despite the efforts of gritters and snowplows, there have been scores of accidents on the roads. In northeast Wales, a supermarket lorry skidded off a bridge in a blizzard and overturned. The driver was wearing a seatbelt and walked away unscathed.
The first thing this morning, the weather was horrendous. The A55 was like a skating rink. So, and unfortunately, the driver, there's nothing he could do. He'd lost it and it just slid off.
Because the snow came late in the night, especially in the south, it settled on what was already sheet ice. Ice that'll return with another freeze tonight. The AA says breakdowns have been running at 1,300 per hour. Runways buried in several inches of snow forced the closure of many major airports. Snowblowers swept the tarmac at Liverpool, which was shut from 5 o'clock in the morning, and airline staff de-iced planes. But 4,000 travellers were still held up. The number delayed at Luton was even higher. Around 15,000 were due to pass through today.
There are only 2 people to deal with all these cancelled flights, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
And at Glasgow, closed for 9 hours, passengers voiced similar frustration at the airport's inability to cope.
Here I feel that they've been caught on the hop, but the weather's been forecasted, hasn't it, to be poor.
But far from the maddened crowds, people who didn't have to travel, like these families in Birmingham, were able just to enjoy the snow. And certain residents of Dudley Zoo felt more at home than ever. George Eakin, BBC News.
One of the worst affected parts of the country is Northern Ireland, which has had its heaviest snowfalls for 18 years. Some areas had more than 7 inches of snow overnight, with temperatures dropping as low as -12 degrees.
As if the worst snow in 2 decades wasn't enough, then came the fog. This is one of Northern Ireland's busiest motorways, and while most main roads were usable, many country roads were simply impassable. Quite apart from transport difficulties, some social services had to be cancelled. It was impossible to get into housing estates. The road service said it had not been unprepared. The snowstorm was so intense that its salting of the roads didn't work.
Temperatures we were facing were down as low as -12. Salt actually becomes ineffective about -10 degrees Celsius. So, you know, those factors all combined, I think, to give us what are, I have to accept, are difficult driving conditions.
The weather was bright today, but at one point all 3 main airports had been closed. 200 people spent the night at Belfast City Airport, and some travellers were angry at how they'd been treated.
Some people have been here 24 hours, and we've been taken off the plane, so that the next lot of people that came later are on the plane. And that's why we are so angry. But they're doing nothing for us. We've been left stranded at the airport. We can't. This lady here's got onward flights to America to catch. She's been told if she loses her reservations, she loses her money. It's not their problem.
The airport said they'd coped as well as they could, but some passengers are being told the next flight they can get is on Sunday. For some, though, it's fun. I don't remember snow like this in Belfast since I was at school. Young ones always enjoy the snow, but for many grown-ups now, it's a case of bah humbug. Dennis Murray, BBC News, Belfast.
Scotland has had its coldest weather for 5 years. 8 inches of snow fell on Glasgow, and as we've seen, air travel was severely delayed. Live now to our correspondent Carol Jones, who's in Glasgow. It looks very cold there. Carol, what's the picture?
It is very cold indeed, Nick, and this indeed is Scotland's heaviest snowfall in 5 years. Up to 10 inches, as you said, has fallen in Glasgow, and that picture has been repeated across west central Scotland. And of course, that severe weather has brought severe disruption, not only in the air, as we've been hearing, but on the rail networks. Trains have been delayed and cancelled, and on the roads, countless problems. Many routes blocked, many people abandoning their vehicles, motoring organisations inundated with calls. But police say so far only a few minor bumps and scrapes. So people are obviously heeding the warnings to take extra care on the roads. On the positive side, as Dennis Murray was saying, people have been enjoying the snow today. Here in Kelvin Grove Park, just before darkness, we actually saw people snowboarding, and they're still going strong behind me here, which is not a sight you see very often in Glasgow city centre. Nick?
It will, I'm sure, be freezing tonight. What are the prospects as we look ahead now?
Temperatures are plummeting, and the fear is that this snow which has fallen is going to ice over, which is obviously going to cause severe problems tomorrow. There's also a fear that the heavy snow falling on pylons and in cables, that extra weight, if it ices up, is going to actually snap cables, so people could be facing power supplies coming down. And the bad news is the cold snap's going to last till at least New Year's Eve. Nick?
Carol Jones in Glasgow, thank you very much indeed. 2 fishermen missing off the Isle of Skye since yesterday have been found alive and well. One was rescued from the sea, where he was still clinging to his upturned boat. The other was found on land, where he'd been sheltering from the bad weather. Both men went missing after setting out on a fishing trip yesterday afternoon, prompting an extensive air, sea and land search. There have been 2 bomb attacks in Israel on the same day that a planned peace summit between the Israeli and Palestinian leaders was called off. An Israeli soldier and policeman were killed and 3 other people wounded when a roadside bomb went off on the border with the Gaza Strip. Earlier, at least 11 people were hurt when a bomb exploded on a bus in Tel Aviv.
It could have been worse, much worse. The number 51 bus was full of people and heading for the suburbs of Tel Aviv when an explosive device went off inside. Small enough so the windows were scarcely broken, but large enough to injure a dozen or more people, one of them seriously. The police, who've been on their guard against terrorist attacks in Tel Aviv over the last 3 months, found what seems to have been another explosive device on board. A few hours later, in the south of Gaza, several members of the Israeli security forces were rushed to hospital after a bomb went off. A policeman was killed instantly, a soldier died later. No one has quite claimed responsibility, but the militants of Hamas certainly aren't denying it.
It is the right of Palestinian side, especially for Hamas, is to resist the Israeli and to make revenge and retaliation for the Palestinian losses.
Still, if the attacks were intended to wreck today's peace talks in Egypt, they failed. All the same, the Israeli Prime Minister didn't go to today's summit and make it a threesome, and Yasser Arafat is demanding many more concessions. But no one's actually pulled out of the talks so far. So it does look as though both sides would like to do a deal still, if it's possible, but they're both using brinkmanship tactics, taking each other to the very edge to try to force concessions, and that obviously has its dangers. And as we've seen today, the peace effort has plenty of enemies. John Simpson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's get the latest now from our Middle East correspondent Paul Adams, who's in Jerusalem. Paul, President Clinton, of course, desperate for a breakthrough before he leaves office. What do you sense are the chances?
Well, 24 hours ago, they seemed pretty good. The summit was planned for today in Egypt. We know that Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak are both heading separately to Washington over the weekend. There was even talk, wild talk, it has to be said, of a signing ceremony in Washington sometime next week. All those hopes do appear to have receded, not necessarily because of the bombings that we've been seeing today, but because the two sides still remain far apart on several fundamental issues, and that's why the summit, already before these bombs today, was cancelled.
So the momentum, albeit sluggish, appears still to be there. Where do you think it will go now?
There is certainly momentum, and I don't think we're going to see it diminish unless, of course, we see a rash of bomb attacks on the streets of Israel and the West Bank and Gaza. You remember back 4 years ago when Shimon Peres was facing re-election, there was suicide bomb after suicide bomb. It wrecked his chances. That's a prospect that Ehud Barak must be acutely conscious of this time as he faces elections in early February. I think we will see the negotiating process, the efforts continuing in the coming days and weeks. It may take longer than everyone was hoping to get the two sides back into face-to-face negotiations in Washington. But still, as far as everyone I think is concerned, there is a hope, if not an expectation, that some kind of deal can be reached before the Israeli elections and before President Clinton ends his term in the White House.
Paul Adams, thank you very much indeed. A 36-year-old man has been arrested after landing a paraglider on the forecourt of Buckingham Palace. The incident happened this lunchtime in front of crowds of bemused tourists. No members of the royal family were in the palace at the time.
It's believed the man took off from Hampstead Heath in North London using a propellered paraglider. His flight was quickly picked up by police, who tracked him from a helicopter. Officers from the Diplomatic Protection Squad were waiting to arrest him as he landed on the palace forecourt. His descent could be seen from large areas of central London.
Everyone was looking up and going, gee, what's going to happen? Because no one knew. I mean, the police could have done something because, I mean, no one wants this guy to go into Buckingham Palace. I mean, who knows what could have happened.
Detectives think the incident was a publicity stunt. Buckingham Palace said no one had been given permission to land on the forecourt and believe the man was surprised by the vigour and speed of the police response. There is an air exclusion zone around the palace. The paraglider is now being questioned on suspicion of endangering the safety of aircraft. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
The world's biggest mobile phone company, Vodafone, could face legal action from brain tumour victims in America who believe handsets were to blame. The action's being started by a lawyer who recently won billions of dollars in damages against tobacco manufacturers. Vodafone said it would vigorously defend any action.
Mobile phones were still one of the most popular presents this Christmas. There are some 30 million of them in Britain and little sign that demand is waning. But there are continuing fears about their safety, even though several major studies, including the recent government-sponsored Stewart report, haven't found a link between mobile usage and brain tumours. Phone companies are ready to defend themselves.
We're quite confident that they are likely to defend the cases quite vigorously because there have been no cases, legal cases in the world where there has been a successfully proven causal link between cancer and the use of a mobile phone.
But American lawyers have had great success taking legal action against tobacco companies, and it is the firm that helped win £3 billion for lung cancer victims that is trying to repeat that victory against a number of US phone companies. It wants to prove there is a link between mobiles and brain tumours and plans court action in the spring. Vodafone owns 45% of the US's biggest mobile phone provider, Verizon Wireless, but it says it won't have to pay anything itself, even if the action is successful. But despite the lack of firm evidence against phone companies, shares in Vodafone and other major phone companies have all fallen today, just in case there is anything to fear. Rebecca Marston, BBC News.
As Britain copes with its worst snowfalls for years, spare a thought for a driver in America who's just been rescued after spending 16 days in his car buried in a snowdrift. Thomas Truitt survived on a carton of orange juice and a packet of sweets after his car broke down. He was discovered by a couple out on their snowmobiles.
Trapped in the middle of nowhere, Thomas Truitt survived 16 days underneath these snowdrifts in the backcountry wilderness of Oregon's National Forest. On the 7th of December, his sports car got stuck, and for 4 days the Air Force man survived in the woods using a cigarette lighter to build small fires. As temperatures dropped, he retreated to his car, living on orange juice, sweets, and finally the snow that was building up around him. On the 13th of December, Mr. Truitt wrote a despairing note to his parents saying goodbye. Then the unlikely rescue. Into this remotest part of Oregon, off any marked trail, came snowmobiling couple June and Chuck Bloom.
He's down there knocking on a car window. Come on!
And all of a sudden I saw that much of his hand knock on the window 3 times.
It freaked us out.
And the first thing I thought of was, thank God there's somebody alive.
The local sheriff's deputy says he's amazed Mr. Truitt didn't succumb to hypothermia. He was wearing little more than a t-shirt and trousers.
So we would have taken a body out here next spring when the snow melted, because right now we have 5 or 6 feet of snow. We'll probably have 10 or 12 feet of snow.
It's the nicest Christmas present you could have, is give a guy his life back.
But Thomas Truitt's troubles aren't over yet. After being treated for advanced hypothermia and acute dehydration, he's been released from hospital into the custody of military officials who think he was absent without leave. Philippa Thomas, BBC News, Washington.
Tonight's main news again. Heavy snow has brought chaos to many parts of this country. Road, rail and air travel has been badly disrupted. Forecasters say the cold spell will continue over the next few days. And bomb attacks have killed 2 Israelis on the day peace efforts faltered again. And that's it for now. There are news bulletins every hour on BBC News 24. I'll be back with more news at 11:15 here on BBC One.
Good evening to you. It may well be a winter wonderland, but if you have to travel anywhere in this weather, it really is a nightmare. A further frost tonight, freezing anything that's melted today, leading to some quite dangerous driving conditions, and we could have a bit more snow to come as well. You can see from the radar we've got a few snow showers around right now. The majority of them will fall across northern and eastern Scotland as well as the northeast of England, but perhaps more persistent snow for a time in southern Wales and also the southwest of England. 2 or 3 centimetres, about 1 inch to fall here. Between those 2 areas we're likely to see some mistiness and a very sharp frost indeed. Now temperatures could fall as low as -15 in Northern Ireland. It's already -10 here, and well inland we're looking at those temperatures several degrees below freezing, as low as -12 across parts of Scotland. Now, it does mean it's going to be a cold start tomorrow morning. A little bit of winter sunshine in places. The majority of the showers down the more eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland as well. Perhaps the south coast seeing a few snow showers coming and going through the day, and a top temperature of around about freezing really for many areas. Now, Saturday's forecast brings some sunshine, I think, in, but also we stay bitterly cold, and especially down the North Sea coast, those strong northerly winds feeding in further snow showers. And then as we move towards the new year, well, here's the change. The milder air coming in from the southwest, but also a weather front bringing some rain. The leading edge of that will give some snow. So for the next few nights, our weather watch for you is for a real severe frost, but also the risk of some heavy snow on New Year's Eve. Throw in some strong winds and we could have blizzard conditions for a while. Of course, we'll have further information for you in our later broadcasts. Bye for now.
What is the problem now?
Life's not easy as Monarch of the Glen.
We're not just friends, and Justine knows it.
When there's no love lost between your loved ones.
I've been slapping down uppity females for 40 years. Not going to stop now.
What is it? Venison? Cow.
No escape from the problems they cause.
I am leaving Glenbogle due to personal differences with Mrs. Laird here.
And no missing the new boy in town.
I'm actually looking for freshwater crayfish.
That's a new one.
I won't be coming here anymore.
Mother, what are you doing?
Stopping you making a fool of yourself.
Sunday nights are Glenbogle nights.
Will you both be quiet? You don't have to run off like this.
Monarch of the Glen, the new series, Sunday the 7th of January on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, the news in London and the South East, with Mike Embley.
Tonight, after the floods, the snow, the ice, the freezing fog. A white Christmas comes a few days late. Winter is with us, big time. And crisis in the classrooms. Why trainee teachers are turning their backs on the blackboard. Good evening to you. Welcome to Newsroom Southeast. Well, snowbound air passengers, frozen points on the railways, treacherous roads and freezing fog on its way. You couldn't say we're in chaos yet, but if you have to travel anywhere, it is not looking pretty. Winter has arrived with a vengeance and there may be worse to come. Temperatures look likely to hit -4 or below tonight. Very good time to be in a warm studio. Our reporter Amanda Harper is braving the cold.
Well, I'm on a bridge over the A1 in Hertfordshire, which is pretty clear and congestion-free at the moment. Sadly, that hasn't been the case across the region, where we've seen airports and motorways shut because of the bad weather.
Grounded and going nowhere at Luton Airport, those hoping to escape to warmer climes had to wait after 8 inches of snow closed the runway. Stansted 2 was shut for 2 hours. Elsewhere in Essex, police reported up to 53 accidents as temperatures plunged below zero, with driving conditions described as treacherous. Most motorways remained open, although the M40 in Buckinghamshire and the M20 in Kent were closed for several hours because of accidents and sheet ice. The gritters were out along most of the main roads, but several side roads like this one in northwest London saw cars trying to skate on the packed ice. Both Overland Rail and the tubes reported delays as a result of points and signal failures. However, the snow did bring entertainment for young and old, as hundreds flocked to Hampstead Heath.
Fantastic. A bit muddy at the end.
No doubt these men are playing hooky from work as I am as well.
Just pushed my dad down.
Tonight, with temperatures expected to dip to -4, the police and motoring organisations are warning of more ice and freezing fog, and have advised drivers not to travel unless it's necessary.
With me is one of the people responsible for keeping Hertfordshire's roads clear, Jonathan Prince. How bad has it been?
Well, it's the worst since 1991. We've had the gritters out there all day since 4 o'clock in the morning. We've covered 11,000 miles today and put down 1,300 tonnes of salt.
That sounds a lot of gritting.
It is a lot of gritting, yes. They've worked very hard. We've paid off well. The hard work that we've done, the preparation, we were prepared for it. We've done very well, including the duty officer who's been up all night checking the weather, and also with the weather forecaster who provides us with up-to-date information.
So will the gritters be out again tonight?
Well, they're going home for a well-earned rest now, but yes, they'll be out again, keeping the roads open for tomorrow.
And I mean, do you think you've done enough?
Yes, we've definitely done enough. All the hard work and preparation has definitely paid off.
Jonathan Prince, thank you very much indeed. And the news is that Luton Airport is expected to open in half an hour's time, about 6 o'clock. But if you are going out tonight, wrap up warm because it's freezing out here. Back to you, Mike.
Amanda, get inside. Thanks very much. Let's take a look at how it is on the roads this evening. 30-mile-an-hour restrictions have been in place all day on the M20 between junctions 1 and 8, and the M23 has been down to 50 between junctions 8 and 11. In Kent, abandoned vehicles have caused problems on the A228, A229 and the A28. And the M20 westbound has been closed most of the afternoon between junctions 9 and 8 by a jackknifed lorry. In Bedfordshire, police are advising drivers to postpone journeys if possible. Let's take a look at the jam cams now. The M25 is slowing up southbound through junction 14, the turn for Heathrow, but is still moving, as you can see. The M4 is building up in both directions between junctions 3 to 4 at Heathrow. And this is the picture at junction 1 of the M40 through the Denham interchange. We should say that earlier snowfalls did keep that outside lane closed, but traffic, as you can see, has now started to move well. Good job. A lot of people have stayed off work. The London Eye fell victim to the big freeze this morning. A build-up of ice on the structure, which is 450 feet high, slowed it down, then stopped it completely for 3 hours. And it's been announced that the Eye will close from January the 15th to February the 9th for what are described as routine maintenance. Engineers are to carry out ultrasound checks on the wells, which hold the wheel together. Police have appealed for help to identify a woman's body found in the Thames 11 days ago. The woman, who'd been cut in half at the waist, was white and probably in her 20s. She had a tattoo with the word Zoe on her left arm and a distinctive small front tooth. She was wearing a beige lycra top with a chain belt. The torso was pulled out of the river at Battersea. The police incident room is at Shooters Hill. The number there, 020-8284-9765, or you can call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Teacher shortages in the southeast are worsening. A survey by the National Union of Teachers suggests that newly qualified staff are deserting their profession in droves because they find conditions too tough. Sarah Morris reports.
All teachers, after completing their certificate, need to work in a school for a year before being fully qualified. It's during this period that the dropout rate is worryingly high, according to the National Union of Teachers survey.
7% of new teachers are dropping out, and this is at a time of staffing crisis, particularly in schools in the South East.
Other teaching unions are also concerned.
Stop blaming teachers for everything that happens in society, often which is totally out of our control. To enable teachers to teach, take away a lot of the bureaucracy.
One school, Beechwood in Slough, was forced to close 1 day a week last term due to teacher shortages. And the problem is echoed around the South East. The Department for Education has been forced to release a series of advertisements to boost recruitment this winter. Sarah Morris, Newsroom South East.
Now, Mission Impossible, Sliding Doors, Billy Elliot, they've all done it. More and more film companies are shooting on the underground. Tube managers have even produced a brochure now for filmmakers. As estate agents say, and Gargi Patel now reports, it's all about location, location, location.
London's tube stations are becoming increasingly popular with filmmakers, from the earliest stations of the 1860s to grand designs of the modern network. It seems all they want to do is say, action.
Not so long ago, trying to go on location underground would have been almost mission impossible. But this year, London Underground has been just the ticket for film companies, with more than 200 requests, from docusoaps to blockbusters like Billy Elliot.
We're well aware of our rich variety of architectural heritage of our stations. We've got stations like Cheshire Mount in the countryside. We've got Baker Street, 1860 that was built, along with Gloucester Road. We've got the Piccadilly line built in the 1930s. Now we've got these magnificent stations here on the Jubilee line.
There's a suspect coming up towards you. He's a young guy wearing jeans with BEX written on them.
In fact, last year, one movie was made up entirely of stories on the tube. And with even more filming requests on track for next year, it'll be a popular platform for new films.
Well, it's the kind of weather that would almost make you glad to be on the tube. -4 tonight. Don't travel if you don't have to. I'll be back just before 11 o'clock.
Light up your New Year's Eve with BBC One. I have a surprise for you. With David Copperfield at 6:45.
Would you care to join me?
The BBC's star-studded two-part production, followed by EastEnders at 8.
This is your night.
David Copperfield concludes at 8:30. At 10:35, join the castaways live on their final night on Taronsay.
I never expected to leave as part of a couple.
Then at 10:45, Angus Deaton says goodbye 2000.
A look back at the news, events and incidents that shaped the last 12 months.
And from 11:45, join Dale Winton and a host of celebrities for the National Lottery New Year Stars with the Big Draw 2001. Kickstart the new year with BBC One.
Do you recognise this man? Or this one? Or this one?
I know Chris Eubank.
He's armed and dangerous.
Why is there a 13M socket in the back of my head?
And he's taking no prisoners.
But I is a man. You was a woman. I is a bull. You was a cow.
Hang loose this Christmas for Lenny Henry in Pieces. Saturday at 9 on BBC One. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yes!
No, in my house, you know.
One man against the system.
I'm willing to buy you out. You've just made a very serious mistake.
Colin Firth is Donovan Quick.
Must resist them. It only takes one person to inspire another and another and another.
Tonight at 9 on BBC One.
Martin, it's getting heavy. EastEnders tonight on BBC One at 7:30. Now, some hot air.